So welcome. I'm Brian Breaker. I'm the editor of Ad Age, and I'm here with Neil Vogel, CEO of Now Dotdash. We are going to, I guess, flip the script a little bit because Neil wanted to make this more of a dialogue where he asked me questions as well, which I'm fine with. I'm less interesting, but I'm game anyway.
I disagree.
But what makes Neil remarkable is that you came on to About.com in 2013.
But you called
correct?
me remarkable.
You are remarkable. Yes. Well, it's worth remarking. So
it's worth
you are
remarking.
able to remark on it.
That's the true definition of remarkable, not like...
is that you came to About.com in 2013. It was a sort of traffic giant by default. It was all this accidental traffic, right?
It wasn't accidental, but it wasn't accidental, but we weren't doing a whole lot to keep it.
Right.
Yeah, I'll give you a quick...
And so you've rebranded. So
I got to About.com in 2013. IAC, which is Barry Diller, had bought it from the New York Times. I probably started 7 or 8 months after IAC had bought it, which was just enough time for a declining business to turn into like a falling knife business, and which was awesome. Yeah. The good news is when you take over that company, you're not the guy who's going to mess it up, so that's awesome.
There's only one way to go.
Yeah, and the issue we had was, all of you had probably seen About.com at the time. You Googled something, you got a search engine results page, we were on it, you clicked on it, and you went to a site, and you're like, oh, this answer's okay, but what is this thing? And there was all these like blue links on it, and it was horrible, and it was unusable, and the brand over time had lost its definition. But the content was great, and IC bought this from the New York Times saying, okay.
And New York Times took a loss on it.
New York Times, About.com was always profitable. We're still very profitable. The New York Times owned it in a time when the New York Times had like lots of existential issues. It was like the financial crisis, and they were late on the move to digital, and so it kind of financed the New York Times for a while. Then IC bought it, and they needed to find someone to run it when it was really declining. I think it was declining more than they thought, and we had to figure out like what the value was here. And even in our worst days, we still were like a top 25 site in the US. And despite our best efforts to destroy this business, we couldn't because our content was great.
Right.
Like it was really, really good. The whole model that worked, that's essentially still the model, was we had experts, topic level experts, writing really deep, comprehensive articles on things. And at the time, it was everything from like how to fry a chicken to leukemia.
Right.
And we figured if we could highlight this content and make us more like a premium publisher, we could succeed. Right. And then we spent our first year and a half or 2 years there failing at that, which meant we thought we could fix About.com. And we thought we could like make it better, make the product better, make it more friendly for advertisers, change how we monetize, make the About.com product better. And it turned out that 2 years of not doing well and missing every quarter and having to explain to Barry Diller why everything was going wrong, we learned what we had to do to be right. And we were doing the wrong thing. We had a model from the 90s that was just like AOL was then or Yahoo was then. We were a big general interest website that was built at a time, and all you guys look younger than me, so you probably don't know this, at a time when like scale mattered. The internet was the Wild West, and if you recognized the name, you used it. So we were About.com. Everyone recognized it, they used it. Cut to today, if you hurt your elbow playing tennis, do you want that advice, the advice on how to get better from WebMD or About.com?
Right.
If you want to have dinner, do you want your recipe from All Recipes or About.com? And you can ask that question 100 times, and the answer was never About.com.
Right.
And advertisers would say the same thing. They would say, well, you guys are great, you're huge, and you're good at data, and we have a lot of scale, and we can reach our audience, but we're not putting our brand next to yours. So like, that's a problem. And then the third problem was if you're a publisher today, and a lot of you guys are, and particularly on mobile, if algorithms have to understand you, meaning you get your traffic from Google or from Facebook or from Pinterest or from wherever. Because we did so many things, some well, some not so well, we confused algorithms. So on topics that they should have been featuring us in the Facebook feed or putting us on the results page on Google, they basically stopped because no one knew what to make of About.com. And algorithms are not smart, they're actually dumb, they're just math. Right. They don't know that like, oh, you're great at this and bad at this. They just take you to what you're bad at. Right. So to cut to what we did is we went back to IAC after years of doing this and said, what we actually have is this great content, and we need to fix it. And I think what we can do is, and this is going to sound ridiculous, Mr. Diller, but we're going to turn Yahoo into Condé Nast. Right. We're going to turn AOL into Meredith. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our content, keep the areas we really, really like and we're good at, which is health, personal finance, travel, tech, home, and food. And we were going to get rid of About.com. We're going to throw away a very high percentage of our content. We're going to abandon verticals where we don't think we can do well, news, sports, fashion, style. We're going to focus on these 5 things, and we're going to launch brand new brands, purpose-built from the ground up, from scratch in each of these verticals.
Right. But you ended up launching 6 verticals, right?
We ended up launching 6, which was the 5 I mentioned, and then a 6th one, which is a reference vertical, which was basically a lot of good content on About.com that's not commercial that we kept anyway, like reference stuff, like homework help and stuff.
When did the switch flip?
We launched our first vertical about 16 months ago in April of 16. In April of 16, when we launched our first vertical very well, our traffic was probably 15 to 20% of where About.com was at its peak, and we were down 20% year over year. Over the next 8 months, we launched all these verticals. Some brand names you guys may have heard very well: The Balance, The Spruce, LifeWire, and TripSavvy.
Anyone read any of those? Do we have any?
Probably heard of some of them. You've searched, and there you go. He works for us. He knows. It's true. And as of right now, last month we did 60 million uniques on ComScore. I think we're now bigger than Business Insider. We're almost the same size as Meredith. We have 5 premium brands. We are selling really big deals to names of people that would never talk to us before. And our sessions, like Google Analytics sessions, and you see it in ComScore, we're up 55% year over year in a world where every other publisher is flat. And the thing that we're incredibly proud of is like there aren't many turnarounds on the internet that work. It's hard to turn around like technology businesses, but we're not a technology business, we're a content business. And by taking our great content and repackaging it, making it super fast and super clean, it just worked. And now we're top 10 in every ComScore category we compete in, and we're just like, we're ready for the future.
Right, so this was, you mentioned the race to scale earlier. There was this big publisher push for scale, and a lot of that has pulled back recently. You're not alone in that, and it's a return to focus. But these individual verticals and building these unique brands, right?
So it's hard, and you guys, most people here are doing something mobile. The experience you need to give somebody when they're a caregiver for someone who has leukemia is incredibly different than the experience you need to give somebody when they're trying to paint their kid's room or when they're trying to like beer batter barbecue a chicken. And there's no way you can do that on one domain. And when we started to build these platforms and think about them, and like we have a food and home team, we have a health team, everything changed. Like the lights came on.
There must be an initial nosedive, no? I mean, because you had an established brand, you had established traffic.
The worry was when we did this, and this was like a conversation with our parent company, IAC. I don't think we could have done this if we were part of a traditional publisher. IAC, for those of you who don't know, is everything from like Match and Tinder to Expedia to HomeAdvisor to Ticketmaster, which is now Live Nation. $50 billion of internet public companies have come out of this. So they understood patience. And when we went back to them and said, we want to do this, I joke around about all the mistakes we made. They didn't really look at our mistakes as mistakes. They looked at them as like data. Like we now know that like most businesses when you run, if you're successful, you'll do like 3 things right for every 2 things wrong. We just did all the wrong things first and then did the right thing second, but it's probably the same proportion. It just like looks better. When we actually launch these new brands, it's petrifying. Like our first brand, there's Hal's here. I just didn't sleep for like a week. We just took our most health. It was called Very Well, and it was the one area that we had a really big pharma business, and we're like quite a sizable publisher. We're of the same financial scale of the guys I mentioned prior. And you just watch you launch, and then your traffic does this, and does this, and does this, and you're like, oh shit, and then this, and then this, and then it clicks in.
What's the time frame?
For something like our home vertical, time frame was a week. For something like our health vertical, it was like 2 months.
Wow.
And we did the one that took the longest we did first, so it was the most terrifying. But what happens is the algorithms then click in, and they're like, oh, wait, this is actually really great content, and it's on a domain I understand, written by a person I understand, and we'll send people to you, and the design's beautiful, and your site is like literally 10 times as fast as it used to be, so that's good. And it's all just worked. Every one of our verticals is up anywhere from 25% to almost 200%. And these are not, it's not like games with math. These started with scale and now have like Like, I think the spruce is the single biggest home and food domain on the internet. Right? We're twice as big as house.
Right.
Like, these things are big. So I want to ask you questions now. This is not much fun. So let me introduce Brian Breaker, my old friend. He just had a similar experience where he just relaunched a brand that didn't need complete gutting, needed refreshing.
It did need a refresh, yeah.
It needed, and which is a different challenge, but a similar challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you who haven't looked, look at the new adage.com.
We have a new
It's
logo.
really good. New logo, new everything, and I'll kick this off and let you tell the story of how you did that, because that might be more relevant to these guys who don't need. It was funny, like I was explaining to someone we were going to do this thing, and they were like, oh, we had to gut the house to the studs. You guys just had to do kitchens and bathrooms.
Yeah, we did not have to gut the house. We had a core DNA that made sense, that we knew what we were about, but the look especially was dated. The tone was dated. It was a trade magazine that felt a little musty. And I was brought on halfway through the process, actually. They started about a year ago. They were working with a design firm called OCD, which stands for Original Champions of Design, which is a very good name. And they're great. And they came up, we worked together with them for the look and feel of the site. And I was brought on to update the tone and the voice and widen the areas of coverage, because advertising is going through a massive disruption, just like everything, and just like publishing, just like everything else. And in a lot of cases, you don't notice the disruption as it's happening. You just sort of wake up one day and you're like, holy shit, what just happened? And in an ideal world, we're going to be able to take a look at this disruption as it's happening, and it's touching everyone. If you look at the election, if you look at the broader culture, it's not just a niche, tradey B2B topic anymore. So we're trying to figure out a way to cover it already. We only have 1 minute left. That can speak more to a broader culture.
One more thing.
Yeah.
The tagline that you're using.
Yes.
Important things for important people.
Important to important people.
Important to
that was our original tagline in 1930, and it's still true today. You're all important. We're all, all the millennials win a trophy. Everybody's important.
In the last minute we have, you talked a lot about brand and about tone and about this tagline, important things for important people. How are you guys sort of expanding the purview beyond advertising?
And this is something if we had more time, I'd throw back to you about how do you launch more verticals without diluting the overall brand? How do we widen our aperture without diluting the overall brand? And that's by remaining true to this one core philosophy, which is the expertise in advertising, in media and marketing, and just understanding that it touches more than just the people that practice it. It touches all of you.
Good close.
And that's it. I think that's all we got. But how do you do it without diluting the brand? We can do this as we walk out.
We scrap them and make new ones.
There you go. Thanks.